Well, they're already putting that money to use. That's right, another $1 million from the Chiefs and the Royals getting sunk in to the yes vote on April 2nd, and we've got a new ad. Have you guys, I haven't seen this one on TV yet, and I watched a lot of local news yesterday with some of the weather we had coming into town, but I have not seen this one on TV. I've only seen this played on social media. Have either of you guys seen the new ad that I'm about to play with the couple sitting on the couch and saying, vote yes, we're lifelong Chiefs fans?
I think it was on when I was in the room, and I didn't absorb it.
Okay.
It may have gone by me, and I thought, well, that was interesting.
How about you, Mark?
I have not heard this one yet.
All right. Well, I'm guessing most of the audience is not either. So let me play it for you here. It's a nice couple with, I don't know if it's their kids. I think it's their grandkids. And they're sitting on the couch in the living room, very wholesome, talking about how much they love the Chiefs and they want to keep them in Jackson County. Here we go.
We've been Chiefs fans from day one.
We've made our kids fans, now our grandkids, for 3 generations. I can't imagine them playing anywhere else.
Question 1 keeps the Chiefs and Royals in Jackson County.
It's a better deal with no new taxes. It means great new innovations at Arrowhead. And hey, maybe more Super Bowls for these little guys.
Vote yes on question 1.
To keep the Chiefs and Royals in Jackson County.
Let's keep it going.
All right, there's the ad. So wholesome. You got the grandparents, you got the grandkids, and it's like, rah-rah, 3 generations. We love the Chiefs. Well, there's 3 things that stood out in that ad to me. As I saw it last night for the first time after the teams dumped another $1 million into the vote yes for April 2nd to upgrade Arrowhead and help the Royals move downtown. And the 3 things that stood out to me in that ad. The first thing, you hear the grandparents in the ad say, gosh, I can't imagine the team playing anywhere else. Wink, wink, nod, nod. I'd hate to threaten you, but, I can't imagine them playing anywhere else. The next thing that stood out to me was the no new taxes. Now, that is something that obviously you've heard from the teams, but that's the first time you've heard it in an ad. Now, regardless of where you're at on this, whether you're a yes vote or a no vote, the reality is if I were to say to John, hey, I'm going to lend you $100 a month for 24 months, right? And then as we approach the 24-month mark, John says, hey, I need 48 months out of you. And I say, well, wait, that's more money out of my pocket. Oh, no. It's still $100 a month. What are you talking about? It's still $100 a month. Yeah, no, but you want it for a longer period of time, so it's technically more money out of my pocket. Yeah, but it's still $100 a month. So it's like we're having this who's on first conversation. That's what's going on here. Yes, it's an extension of the current tax that is on the books at 3/8 of a cent for a sales tax. Your taxes will not go up in Jackson County. At least your sales taxes won't go up in Jackson County because of this. But a tax that was supposed to expire in about 5 or 6 years that is now going to go on, beyond most people's expected existences in Jackson County and on this planet is technically a continuation of a tax, which is really a new tax. But what you're hearing from the teams is that it's not a new tax. It's not a new tax in the sense that it's not adding to any existing taxes. But if you take a tax that was supposed to end in 2030, 2031, and you extend it to 2071, well, it is a new tax, right? But now you are having that kind of angle being taken in the advertisements by the teams. That's their prerogative, but I think it's worth discussing a little bit deeper and a little bit more. And then you can decide for yourself. That's not me saying vote no. I'm just putting out the reality of you can very much vote yes, but actually understand what this is. And then the third thing that stood out to me is what was missing from that ad. And who was missing from that ad? Not a lot of blue in that ad.
That hit me.
A lot of red, a lot of Chiefs, a lot of Super Bowl talk. Not a lot of Royals in that ad. I mean, they got mentioned. Hey, keep the Royals and Chiefs in Jackson County. But it became solely a Chiefs play. Because as we've long discussed, the Chiefs are the far less controversial part of this vote on April 2nd. The far more controversial part is the Royals and whether or not people want them to go downtown and build this new ballpark at the Crossroads. So conveniently, what got left out? What got left out was really any talk about the Royals. It was just about keep them in Jackson County, but no mention as to what their plans might be. So to me, a part of me wondered if that was to take advantage of the low information voter who's not at 6:10 in the morning on a Thursday tuned in to 95.7 FM KCMO like they should be. Now, a huge percentage of this town is, but not everybody. We want everybody to be here, but we understand that's not reality. But how many people might just see that ad and say, oh, no, we don't want to lose the teams. We would hate to see the teams go anywhere. Therefore, gosh, we better go out and vote yes, without even knowing what's on the table, without even really understanding that the Royals do have plans to go down to the Crossroads. They want to leave Kauffman Stadium, and they want to basically start a whole new existence downtown. The most controversial part of this got left out. The most controversial part of this was not even discussed in the most recent 30-second commercial. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think that the creators of the ad just said, whoa, gosh, we totally forgot about that part of this. And I don't think you're going to see in the next 2.5 weeks any ads that promote the Royals going down to the Crossroads, because that remains the most controversial sticking point in this entire conversation, John.
I noticed, as a communications guy, you notice what's said, what's not said. I don't feel like it addressed any of the negatives that we've identified.
It just ignored them,
Right, and it goes on, and to your point, it was all about the Chiefs, but wait a minute, this is about something else, really.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Mm-hmm. It is. There's a lot more to it than just an extension to keep the teams at Truman Sports Complex.
When you get the cart in front of the horse there, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah. And, as I was watching that, I was thinking about Sly James on the show a couple of days ago when he admitted, hey, if this was just an extension to keep the teams at the complex, this would probably pass. But because of the fact that it has turned into a fairly controversial piece around the Royals moving downtown and where they're moving downtown, not only moving downtown, but moving to the more controversial part of downtown. The less controversial choice would have been the East Village. The more controversial choice was where they decided to go. At the last minute, in the 11th hour, oh, by the way, we're going to the old Star Building, and we're going to go right in the Crossroads. That is by far the most controversial selection they could have had, especially with it coming as late in the process as it ultimately did. So now we sit here and we wait. And we'll see what the next ad looks like, because something tells me there's going to be more over the next couple of weeks. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. Text line, Pete, tax is not only paid by Jackson County residents. No, I get it. If I go from Corporate Woods today over to Jackson County and I buy something, I will pay that sales tax. But the reality is this. The residents in Jackson County will pay the bulk of the taxes because they do the most business in Jackson County because they live there. It is true that a portion of it will be subsidized by anybody in Jackson County. From the region, passing through, all that is true. But it doesn't change the reality of who's going to pick up the bulk of that bill. 913-408-7957. Coming up. The TikTok ban was passed in the House yesterday. What are the odds it actually makes it anywhere in the Senate? And who's at political risk here in 2024 because of this potential ban? We'll tell you who coming up on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Well, as we kick off the show on a Thursday here on KCMO, we are monitoring the weather as we were last night. I know many of you up north got hit pretty hard with some of that hail that came through the area. For the next 25 minutes, a severe thunderstorm warning for Bates and Cass County till 6:45. So anything that pops up, we'll have it for you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And later today could be a little more active as well. So we'll monitor that.
We didn't get anything in Grandview until just about before I went to work this morning.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple rumbles out in Olathe last night.
I could hear it. It was all south and to the east of us for sure.
Yeah, it was active up north. I know. But, here's the thing, too. Just real quick, I won't get off on the high horse on this one. But you could tell the weather guys last night on TV, I mean, they were dying for something a little more severe. It was, their first test run of the spring, and they were all rah-rah, fired up. It's like, guys, I don't know if that was worth breaking out of the regularly scheduled programming for what we got last night. I know we had a tornado watch, but even they were admitting, as that severe weather was coming through the Northland, they were admitting that the tornadic activity was likely very, very low. So how often can I look at a guy getting pelted with pea-sized hail in his car for? I mean, it's not that compelling content, but they were dying to get something going last night, and they did. So anyway, monitoring the severe thunderstorm warning, Cass County and Bates County for the next 20 minutes or so, and could be getting more of that throughout the morning here on KCMO. So the House yesterday, overwhelmingly on a bipartisan basis, approving a bill that would ban TikTok from operating in the U.S. or force a sale. And that now heads to the Senate. The measure passed 352 to 65. Broad bipartisan support for cracking down on the app. The vote moved Congress closer to an unprecedented ban of one of the most popular apps in the United States. There are 170 million TikTok users in the nation. I am not one of them. I'm going to go out on a wild limb and say John is not one of them.
No, sir.
And I'm going to, I believe, use my memory to recall Mark has an account but does not use it. Is that a correct analysis of your TikTok relationship?
Yeah, I check it once a month to see what my brother and one of my other friends sends me.
Okay,
videos.
All right. So none of us are TikTok experts. For me, I mean, listen, I'm on all the social media apps. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and X. But I've always been of the belief that I'm not going to download TikTok. First off, there's nothing on TikTok that for the most part you can't do on Instagram or see on Instagram. And then the second part of it is, I'm not really interested in being part of a company and downloading an app that has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. And that's not me putting on my tinfoil hat. It's just like there's enough apps out there that I don't need that one. I don't need to dabble with the CCP, John.
I already went through I got these albums. Oh, cassette tech? Say track, cool. Okay, CDs? Okay. Yeah, I keep getting bounced from format. I'm not doing it again. So, MySpace to Facebook was my hop done.
Yeah. Oh, man. So I'm coming to you from the standpoint of somebody who does not use the app. But I'm also not old man get off my lawn here. Like, I know plenty of people that do use the app, that are active users of TikTok. I know what it means for influencers and for businesses and things of that nature. But it's also why I don't have a lot of sympathy for those who built a company on the backs of a company that has enormous influence and essentially partial ownership from the Chinese Communist Party. So here locally, you had Mark Alford, Emmanuel Cleaver, and Sharice Davids all vote in favor of this TikTok ban. When's the last time? I'm sure there have been times when the three of them have voted the same way, but that tells you a lot about how bipartisan this is. Now, interestingly enough, you also had bipartisan people vote against this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against it. How strange is that, right? Mark Alford and Sharice Davids vote for it. Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC vote against it. You can't make left from right, up from down on this deal. To me, it's just voting your conscience. And I agree with Emmanuel Cleaver. I agree with Sharice Davids. I know that might surprise you. But also, of course, Mark Alford, who voted in favor of this. And the reason is very simple. You have an app here in TikTok that continues to create national security worries for the United States of America. There is no greater enemy of the United States right now than the Chinese Communist Party. I know we're not in some official like war with them, and we think about wars and we think about the Middle East and we think about, Ukraine and Russia and what our obligations have been there for better or for worse. But the biggest threat that this country has today is the Chicoms, and it's not even close. And war today, and just warfare in general, is not going to look like it did 100 years ago or 50 years ago or even, go back a generation ago. It's going to look very different. And having our greatest enemy have access to an app that over half the country has downloaded is a national security threat. That's not old man get off my lawn. That's just basic common sense. Now, the fear from some people who maybe are more libertarian in certain conservative circles, they'll say, well, does this give more power to Mark Zuckerberg? It might in the short term. Yeah, I'm sure Facebook would like it and Instagram would like it. Meta as a whole would like it if TikTok was out of the picture. Yeah, I'm sure that's good for them. But it doesn't mean that's the case forever. Google could create a version of TikTok. Meta, which is Facebook, has tried to create a competitor to Twitter, to X. It's called Threads. And I go on Threads once in a while to see what's going on, and all I see are porn stars and bots. Like, it has not been a success, despite the fact that Mark Zuckerberg has tried to go after Elon Musk with his own version of Twitter. And it's terrible. I still post on there once in a while to kind of keep it going, but there's never any real engagement. Unless you like porn stars and bots, I guess that could be your thing. But for most of us who don't like that stuff and don't want that content, it's been very underwhelming. So the notion that Mark Zuckerberg is suddenly going to clean up and he's going to be the king and everyone's going to be, bowing down to Mark Zuckerberg. No, I think that TikTok would be replaced if the Senate does end up banning it and then President Biden signs it. But there is a chance, let's not forget, there's still a chance for TikTok to stay in the U.S. What would they have to do? Well, they'd have to basically make sure that they divest any relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. It calls for the parent company ByteDance to divest itself of TikTok because ByteDance is the one who has the relationship with the CCP. And if they don't divest themselves of TikTok, basically sell it off, then yes, they would be banned from app stores and web hosting services in the U.S. And the person who's potentially at risk here in all this is Joe Biden. If he signs the bill and young people who love TikTok and don't know anything else about what's going on in American politics are like, oh, damn it, Joe Biden signed a law that banned me from going on TikTok. Joe could pay a political price. He'd be doing the right thing. But the only person who will pay a theoretical political price here is Joe Biden. And that's why deep down he says he will sign the bill, but I also don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants this to get to his desk, which is why I think the Senate is actually not going to pass this thing. Rarely do I think this guy is someone that I would applaud. But I got to give credit to BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, who I know you're screaming at the radio right now. You're screaming at your Alexa. I'm not a fan of BlackRock. All right, BlackRock is doing a lot of things that I am not a fan of. Most notably, getting into the residential real estate market, buying up neighborhoods, and making it more difficult for everyday Americans to live out their American dream by buying their homes. But I will say he made one point yesterday when I saw him on CNBC, and I thought to myself, okay, that's a reasonable point, and it ties into one of our biggest topics we've discussed this week. So let me listen, everybody can make a good point. The worst people on the planet can make decent points. Right? You can say, hey, Vladimir Putin can make a good point. That is allowed to happen. I'm not comparing Larry Fink to Vladimir Putin, but you get where I'm going here with this, right? So here is Larry Fink on CNBC. And he was talking about how there's a lot more enthusiasm from young people in the stock market. And part of that's been driven by social media. When COVID happened, everybody opened up their Robinhood account. They threw in their $1,000. They started day trading. My brother's only a few years younger than me, He's in his, I was going to say he's in his late 20s, but no, he's in his early 30s now. So we're all growing up. But him and his buddies for the last several years have been obsessed with, the Bitcoins of the world and all that kind of stuff that is not in my wheelhouse, but it's something that the younger generation is fascinated by. So here was Larry Fink talking about young investors in particular and how their engagement, while they might be doing dumb things like investing in meme stocks like GameStop, they're at least engaged and aware of the markets and the power of the markets. And overall, that can be a good thing for the future of America. Here's Larry Fink.
Well, as I said in the past, I'm very excited about seeing how investors are focusing on even meme stocks and other things like that, as you said, Robinhood. I believe if we can improve financial literacy, as we can help more people focus on not just the speculating of markets and ups and downs, but translating that into investing in the long run, the issue about retirement that Joe talked about, maybe less of a problem for the next generation, the young people. We're now focused on things like the equity.
So you hear him say there, you hear Larry Fink say there, basically, and I'm summarizing here, he's encouraged by the fact that young people are into the markets. And they're into the markets in a way that maybe prior generations were not. Now, part of this is just because of technology. You can pull up your 401k. You can trade stocks on your phone right now. I mean, I literally can open my Fidelity app. You can see, what your 401k is doing. You can sell. You can buy. It's all right at your fingertips. Whereas you go back, 30, 40, 50 years, it was kind of an effort, right? It was like, all right, I got to call somebody. I got to check in on it. I mean, maybe you're following the tickers and whatnot, but for the most part, it was a much heavier lift. So technology has created this world where anybody can open up a brokerage account. Anybody with $1,000 can start trading stocks today, and you can start teaching yourself through the internet, through Google, through YouTube about the markets. It's one of the great things about technology now. You can basically self-teach yourself in a way that you couldn't a generation ago that would have required going to college and taking 4 years of finance courses. Those days are over. And I think in large part that's a good thing. So you hear him say there at the end of that quote from Larry Fink, you hear him say at the end something I thought was very interesting. When Joe Biden talks about retirement, this may change the conversation for the next generation because they're more aware of it. And they can pull in and plug into their computer the value of compound interest. And this ties to yesterday when we talked a lot about Social Security. And I pointed out the sham that it was, and this came in the wake of Donald Trump's comments, also coincidentally on CNBC, where Donald Trump went on CNBC, and he didn't talk about cutting Social Security, but he admitted that Social Security is a big reason we are in the financial mess that we're in, and in $34 trillion of debt. Now, of course, Joe Biden tried to jump on that and tried to take advantage of it, but Trump didn't really bury himself at all. He just admitted it's a problem. He didn't say he was going to cut Social Security. But even saying that, of course, creates a scenario where Joe Biden is like, I'll never cut your Social Security, and Trump might. It's like, well, Trump didn't say he was going to do that. But I understand if you're a politician and you're looking for power and you're of the belief that the people need us more than we need them, you will convince the lemmings that you are necessary for them to get their Social Security checks. And I laid out yesterday why I think that's a bunch of nonsense and why Social Security is the biggest scam going. So I put this up on my Facebook page yesterday, Pete Mundo on KCMO, and you can find this post there. It's gotten, hundreds of comments at this point and a lot of reaction. And I laid this out here yesterday. I said, if you were to only make $60,000 for your entire adult life, never more, and you worked from age 22 to age 62, and you invested 6% of your paycheck each month, that's $310, into an S&P index fund, and you averaged 10% return per year, which is the average return dating back to 1957, you would have a retirement account of $1.9 million at the age of 62. That's the power of compound interest. At age 62, you do what you want. You keep investing, you retire, you start living off it. You could pass that wealth down to your family for generational wealth. the only people who prefer the current system of Social Security are those too dumb to do the math, those who have no self-control, or those politicians who want you to think that you need them for your own survival. It's one big scam. And one of the comments that I came away with here in reading through dozens and dozens and dozens of your comments were from some older folks who are like, Pete, this stuff was not taught when we were young. This stuff was not part of the conversation in the 70s and 80s when we were going through the workforce and starting things in our lives. We were just told, hey, don't worry, Social Security is great. It's going to be there in 40 years. And John actually alluded to that point yesterday as well. So when we got all these comments yesterday on my Facebook page about it, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about it through the prism of what Larry Fink said yesterday on CNBC. The younger generation's eyes may be opening up to this. And I know we like to make fun, and I don't, but I do sometimes too. Okay, I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. I know we all like to goof on the younger generation. Now that I'm a millennial, millennials like to goof on Gen Z, just like boomers and Gen Xers like to goof on us as millennials when we were younger. So, the cycle continues on. And there's something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said for the fact that if the younger generation is more in tune, if they are more engaged, if they are willing to open up their eyes to the fact that the government is not the answer, and they are doing their own homework, and they're investing in stocks, and even if they're doing stupid meme stocks like GameStop, they're at least engaged in the process. That's a step in the right direction. I've got to give them that much, where they're suddenly doing the math, because right now you can just type into your Google interest rate calculator, and you can say, okay, if I invest $200 a month for 40 years at 10% return, how much money do I have? That's stuff that you couldn't do 30, 40 years ago without taking out your calculator and sitting down for 10 minutes, John.
Yeah, we would do well to pay past attention. My parents' generation grew up with, hey, smoking cigarettes is cool. It's good for you, right? And so we should learn things from it. It does take time,
Yeah.
We boomers are brought up, got to go to college.
Yeah.
Social Security's there for you, buddy. Don't worry. Which turned into, I don't need to save much. I've got a parachute.
Exactly.
Right. Whoops.
And I'm sympathetic to that. And that's why, not to relitigate the whole conversation, but in case you missed it yesterday, I am in no way suggesting that anyone at retirement or approaching it should have their Social Security impacted.
Nor have you ever.
Nor have I ever. Correct. In the, soon to be starting year 7 of the show. But when you talk about the future, it is unsustainable. It cannot continue, and it is a scam for the individual and the taxpayer. And if young people opening up Robinhood accounts and trading stocks and doing investing for fun on the side helps wake up the next generation to the scam that Social Security is, sign me up. I mean, that is a step in the right direction. If you want some optimism from the youth in 2024, that's it for you on a Thursday morning on KCMO. 913-408-7957 as we approach 7 o'clock here on KCMO Talk Radio. Mayor Quinton Lucas will join me at 7:35 as he does each and every Thursday morning. Looks like that severe thunderstorm warning has expired in Cass and Bates County. It was set to expire here coming up in about 15 seconds, and it has. Next, we have some new arrests. In the wake of the Super Bowl shooting, who and why? We'll get to it on 95.7 FM KCMO. Whoa, you don't say. There are laws on the books already, and the feds can help. It's amazing what happens when you're tough on crime. That's the story this morning after federal prosecutors yesterday announced 3 Kansas City men were charged in connection with an illegal firearms trafficking investigation in connection with the shooting outside of Union Station during the Super Bowl parade. Thedo Antonia Manning, Ronell Dwayne Williams, and Chalin Hendrick Groves.
Yeah, that's pronounced Kalen.
Kalen, thank you very much.
I had to watch a TV myself.
Better you than me.
I hate seeing them print going, uh-oh.
Better you than me.
I go fishing on the videos.
Chalin Hendrick Groves, between the ages of 19 and 22, all face felony charges in federal court. According to a criminal complaint, 2 of the firearms recovered in the shooting that left, of course, 1 person dead and 22 wounded had been illegally trafficked. Here's the statement that was put out in part by U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Missouri, Teresa Moore. This was yesterday. These cases underscore the importance of enforcing federal firearms laws.
Talk about a bombshell.
Whoa! Stopping straw buyers and preventing illegal firearms trafficking is our first line of defense against gun violence. At least 2 of the firearms recovered from this scene of the shooting at Union Station were illegally purchased or trafficked. We work diligently with our law enforcement partners to keep firearms out of the hands of criminals by investigating and prosecuting those who illegally buy and then sell dangerous weapons. So, by the way, these 3 people are new names. They are different from the individuals who were charged with the actual shooting. These individuals are charged, one of them, Fado Antonia Manning, 22, charged in a 12-count criminal complaint. The other 2 guys, Rennell Williams and Kaylin Groves, were charged in a 4-count federal crimes criminal complaint. So these are different people and different guys from those who were charged with the actual shooting itself. So still, this is not stopping people from using this tragedy to push their BS and to somehow make this about gun control. I mean, it's just, at this point, it's not even, it's just insulting how stupid it is. But leave it to some of the biggest morons in local politics, like Manny Abarca on the Jackson County legislature. And, I mean, that son of a gun, he put out a tweet last night after this news dropped saying, guns legally purchased and passed to juveniles. Gun show loopholes. When will we stop this? Hashtag gun reform now. All right, Manny, try to, kiss your ass to get on CNN as much as you can there, buddy. I mean, that guy he's got no shame. No shame whatsoever. It's really pathetic. Hold on a second here. The feds are basically saying, hey, we have done our job. These guys have broken laws. They are involved in illegal firearms trafficking, and we are arresting them and charging them. They broke laws. They have been arrested for breaking said laws. What law are you passing that prevents these individuals who already broke laws from breaking more laws? Tell me what that is, genius. Of course, it never comes. They just like to do their hashtag gun reform now, gun show loopholes. So let's create more laws when right now we're struggling to enforce the current laws. That makes a ton of sense, right? You already have people who are breaking laws. So let's figure out a way to make sure that the guns that are on the streets right now are legal. How could you do that? Well, you could have the Fed get much more involved with what's happening on the ground in Kansas City, a la Operation Legend, when you had hundreds of illegal guns get confiscated from the streets in this town. I mean, let's not forget that operation from 2020, right in the middle of COVID after George Floyd, when Kansas City was dealing with a record murder rate. What happened? Well, you had 518 arrests made. You had 176 firearms seized. You had large quantities of illegal drugs and stolen vehicles that also were seized. It was an enormous success. The ATF, the FBI, local law enforcement came in here and they did a great job over a very short period of time cleaning up the streets in Kansas City, Missouri. These laws are on the books. If you have people who want to do their job and you have people who are ready to make a difference, this can be taken care of. If you have proactive policing, and understandably you don't right now in Kansas City, in part because you're short-staffed, and then the other part of it is they don't want to be the next Eric DeValcanaire. They don't want to be the next, Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis. They are scared to death that this prosecutor in this county is more interested in prosecuting them than prosecuting criminals. And regardless of what the city council says, and even if the city council gives a 30% raise to new cops, They don't trust them. They don't trust the city council. They don't trust the prosecutor. Yet these very same people, if they were able to be more proactive, you could probably get a lot of illegal guns off the streets right now. But understandably, that is not something that there's a lot of interest in doing based on what's happened in this community the last 4 years. So instead, you get, absolute imbeciles in the Jackson County legislature who are looking for the next hit on MSNBC, going out there and screaming about gun loopholes and gun reform now and using hashtags that they hope their friends at MSNBC and CNN will retweet and share and give them 2 minutes on TV because they're pathetic whores. And nothing actually ends up getting accomplished. John, have I made my point clear, by the way?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, right. I was just saying the guns aren't purchased legally, as he claims, once the people lie. One guy's got 10 counts making a false statement on federal form. Each of the other two have the same. They have one count of aiding and abetting making false statements in the acquisition of firearms, and also conspiracy to do the same. So clearly the laws are on the books. They are not a legal purchase once they lie on the forms.
They're illegal.
For which they all three are charged with something like that.
Yes, they are charged with lying on their forms, which means they broke the law. The law was already broken, geniuses. Yet somehow they are convinced, like all get out, that we're just a law away from making this thing, the safest city in the country. Please, spare me that nonsense, would you? Mayor Lucas will be here at 7:30. We've got those Kansas City Auto Show tickets and your chance at a 75-inch TV at 8:45 on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up next, speaking of law enforcement in this town, headline here, KCUR, Black women sue Missouri to end state control of KCPD. Once again, that is from Woke KCUR. What is that all about? We'll get to it next. Slavery is alive and well in Missouri. You didn't know that? You weren't aware? Well, that's the accusation this week. KCUR, National Panhandler Radio here in Kansas City, writes this headline at 7:05 on a Thursday. Thanks for being here on KCMO. Black women sue Missouri to end state control of Kansas City police. A new federal lawsuit argues that the Missouri law cementing state governance of KCPD was created to keep black people enslaved. 3 black women filed a federal lawsuit this week against the state of Missouri, alleging the state's control of the police department singles out people by race and creates an unequal system. I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around that one. I don't know about you at 913-408-7957. But, of course, if you don't know how KCPD operates, I'll hit the reset button on that for a second. KCPD is overseen by a board of police commissioners. On that board of police commissioners are folks appointed by the governor of Missouri, and then the mayor is also on that board. So the elected mayor is on the board of police commissioners, along with individuals appointed by the governor. Now, you'll have people who are on the board who are appointed by different governors, right? So over the last few years, you've had people on the board who were appointed by Mike Parson, some by Eric Greitens, and going on back. So it's not just the governor in office at that point in time. It's when there's a governor and there's an opening, kind of like a Supreme Court. It's just there's no approval process. The governor appoints somebody new to the board of police commissioners. That's how it works. And somehow there is this lawsuit that claims that this concept, which is, yes, unique to Kansas City. St. Louis used to have it. They no longer do have it. But in Kansas City, it still exists. And they claim in this lawsuit that it singles out people by race and creates an unequal system. I would love to be in the courtroom when this case is being heard to hear the why behind that, to get the understanding of what makes this unequal to anybody. What I know is this much. If we didn't have this system in Kansas City, despite the fact that everyone right now is going to try to rewrite history these next few weeks when the budget comes out, and the police are going to get a 30% raise, at least the new cops are going to get a 30% raise, And a lot of people in charge are going to be like, yeah, back the blue. Woohoo. Yeah, look at us. We're doing great. We're supporting our cops and men and women in law enforcement.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to 3 years ago when they tried to pull the end around on the police by approving a budget and then after the budget was approved, taking some of those monies away and making the police department reapply for that money that they'd already budgeted for them. In one of the biggest, what would have been one of the biggest screw jobs of all time. Thankfully, the court said, you can't do this. And then what happened, by the way? Local state senator Tony Luetkemeyer and the Missouri legislature actually required KCPD to get 25% of the budget in KCMO rather than 20% of the budget. Now, they were basically already at that number, but it was such a loser effort by leaders in Kansas City, Missouri, that they got squeezed on the back end by the legislature, which sent them a message saying, don't pull this crap again, okay? Do not try to defund the police and then insist it's not a defunding. You would have given it back to them. They just got to reapply for it. Like all that nonsense that was going on in 2021, which is when that happened, would have happened if you did not have the system in place that you have in this town. Heck, I believe if the city council was in charge of the police department funding in Kansas City and there was not a board of police commissioners, because of how feckless many on the city council were and because of how influenced they were by the most progressive activists in 2020, I think they would have done serious damage to this police department from a funding perspective. And how many more people would have been killed potentially or shot at the very least because of those cuts? You saw that happen in Minneapolis. They did actually defund the police, and then it never really got covered. But in the last couple of years, there was like this come to Jesus moment where they realized, boy, I guess we kind of need cops, huh? Guess we should try to give some money back to the cops and rehire some police, huh? It's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea, guys. You kind of screwed yourself. They realized firsthand that defunding the police is an awful idea.
Show some RESPICT.
And they like to come back at it, too, with the working man thing. We're increasing the budgets for the boots on the ground, the guys out on the streets doing the work.
Yeah.
You know, it comes to that, we're for the working cop.
Yes, of course. When, by the way, there's still so much in this town that is not supporting the working cop and is not allowing the working cop to do his or her job right now in Kansas City. But once again, that's neither here nor there at the moment. So there's this lawsuit out there. KCPD officials had no comment on the lawsuit. And don't forget, this is the second lawsuit in recent memory that questions the constitutionality of the state's control of KCPD. KCUR writes here, Gwen Grant, president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Kansas City, filed suit in 2021 alleging taxation without representation. That did not end up going anywhere. The lawsuit, though, this one, cites the original law first passed in 1861 that was used to, quote, keep black people captive and deny black people basic human rights and dignities. The lawsuit says, quote, the legislature passed the police bill with the direct knowledge and awareness that the law would be used to further discriminate against black people by keeping them enslaved and considered property. If you think that a board of police commissioners in Kansas City is the issue that, as you perceive it, as this lawsuit claims, is keeping black people enslaved and considered property, I pray for you that you see the light at the end of the tunnel, that you find and you wake up one day and you realize that whether you like this system or not, your lot in life, your lot in Kansas City, will in no way be determined by who controls the police department. I promise you that. And I say that because I have faith in every single Kansas City and all 500,000 that if you want to create that lot and make it better for yourself, you're capable of doing it. You cannot blame your lot. You cannot blame your situation on this police department, on this board of police commissioners. You can't do it. If you're being intellectually honest with yourself, and you're believing in yourself, you can't do it. But for the hucksters and the grifters and the shysters looking either for a handout, looking for attention, looking for fortune and fame, they're not going to let that get in the way of their grift. And that's what this lawsuit's all about. And then, of course, they'll get the white-guilted goobers at KCUR to, treat them like celebrities and never ask any hard-hitting questions on any of this stuff. The mayor of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas, will be here at the bottom of the hour at 7:35. We will cover that and much more with him in 20 minutes on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app. When someone goes up to Capitol Hill with a microphone and just kind of starts doing man-on-the-street stuff, I always get a kick out of it. And that's what happened yesterday. So I want to play this for you here, and it's in the wake of, the non-controversy controversy. Bill O'Reilly was just talking about this on his morning update. He was saying that Joe Biden, as he gets set for November, is going to do one thing and one thing only, and that's try to appease his progressive base, because that's what the media is telling him to do. But if Joe Biden doesn't win in November against Donnie Boy, the reason for that is going to be because of independence. That's what the data shows. But remember, the media and his progressive base are trying to convince him, because he doesn't know any better. They're trying to convince him that he's got to appeal more to the progressive base, and that's why he might lose. He's got to turn them out. It's like, no, it's independents who are going to swing this thing in your favor or against you. But he's doubling down on the most insane members of his own party. So that's how he ends up going on this apology tour for what he said at the State of the Union last week, when he had the audacity to call Jose Ibarra, the illegal immigrant who allegedly killed Laken Riley. He called Jose Ibarra illegal. And then, of course, he goes on MSNBC over the weekend and he apologizes for that.
But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
Undocumented person.
Undocumented
and I shouldn't have used illegal.
I love how he said person, too. It's like, can you at least call him a man? Or now are we in this, no gender society where he's also got to call him an undocumented person? That got overlooked, by the way. Just call him an illegal male immigrant. All those things are factually true. But instead, he's an undocumented person. I don't know how he's identifying today. It's not up to me to decide. It's like, oh, my goodness. Are we really living in that fantasy world with these folks?
And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd hate to call somebody who allegedly killed one of my own citizens illegal and, make him feel bad about himself. I wouldn't want to do that, I mean, that literally was the president of the United States on MSNBC this past weekend in one of the most insane comments that a president of the United States has ever made. It's just nuts that someone convinced him that was a good idea. Now, that'll win over the independents. Independents love it when you go out there and you call someone who allegedly killed an American citizen not illegal, apologize for it, call him an undocumented person, because we're not sure what kind of gender he's using today and what pronouns are today. Got to go to the can to ask him that. And we're going to apologize for that because, these people built the country. Illegal immigrants who kill people, going out for runs, they built the country. So, I apologize. It's on me. So yesterday, a reporter went in, and I apologize, I'm not sure on her name, but I saw this clip, so I wanted to share it. She goes through Capitol Hill, and she starts asking various members of Congress whether or not Joe Biden should have called Laken Riley's killer, Jose Ibarra, alleged killer, an illegal immigrant. And here's how that went.
Do you think President Biden should have used the term illegal in his State of the Union address?
I think that President Biden should refer to people with dignity and respect.
unless they disagree with me.
Yeah. And you know who I don't have a lot of dignity and respect for? I don't know about you. I mean, maybe this is a radical right-wing conspiracy when I say this. But I don't have a lot of dignity and respect for murderers. You tell me if I'm wrong.
Talk about a bombshell.
I don't know. It just seems to me like if you kill one of our citizens, you're not worthy of dignity and respect. Have any of these people who are making these statements, and I've got more here coming up, have they spent a minute in the real world, a minute on Main Street in the last 3 to 4 years to realize just how ridiculous they sound?
Could you call them illegal or undocumented? And that's really up to you, how you feel.
Do you think it was appropriate for the president to use the term illegal in the State of the Union?
No, and he addressed that.
Why is it wrong for someone to call someone that entered the country illegally an illegal immigrant?
Because it's classifying the human being, and no human being is illegal.
No human being is illegal. That was Pramila Jayapal, by the way, out of Washington State. There it is, right off the yard sign. No humans illegal. It's amazing, though. I mean, why doesn't Pramila Jayapal offer Jose Ibarra a room? I'm sure he's looking for a place to stay. I mean, now he's got a place to stay in the can that he's been charged with murder. But in the meantime, you know, if God forbid he posts bail or something, maybe Pramila Jayapal can have him in a room. This is nuts. This is insanity. And if rhetoric like this, I mean, you may not like Trump's rhetoric on immigration, like that's your prerogative, I guess. But if you think this is mainstream, you have completely lost your mind.